Hey, brand builder, Rory Vaden here. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out this interview. As always, it's our honor to provide it to you for free. And wanted to let you know there's no big sales pitch or anything coming at the end. However, if you are someone who is looking to build and monetize your personal brand, we would love to talk to you and get to know you a little bit and hear about some of your dreams and visions and share with you a little bit about what we're up to see if we might be a fit. So if you're interested in a free strategy call with someone from our team, we would love to hear from you. You can do that at brandbuildersgroup.com/podcall, brandbuildersgroup.com/podcall. We hope to talk to you soon.
So I knew when I was going to sit down with Gabby Bernstein that we were going to talk about books and book launches and book writing. That was part of like what we decided on the front end that we were going to talk about. But I had no idea that we would get into such a conversation about spirituality and what the spiritual connection is to launching books. But I'm so glad that we did, because that was a conversation. If you haven't listened to it, you have to go back and listen to this interview with Gabby Bernstein. I mean, she's a #1 New York Times bestselling author. She's written 9 books. Several of them have hit the New York Times list, and several of them sell very, very well. She's built a huge social media following. She's a spiritual teacher, which, like, I don't follow her super closely on that side of things, because, I'm a hardcore Bible thumping Jesus freak. So I tend to follow more of like, pastors and stuff like that. But I like following Gabby, but I thought what was really interesting, and I've always followed her as like a marketer to see what she's doing, and she's just sweet and kind. And so, I built a relationship with her just recently with some of the other stuff we were doing. And then she mentioned, hey, she is doing a free training for authors on how to become a bestseller. And I said, well, hey, that's something we should talk about. Like, our community would really care about that. And so, by the way, if you go to brandbuildersgroup.com/Gabby, so brandbuildersgroup.com/Gabby, Gabby, you can check out, depending on when you hear this, you can sign up for the free training that she's doing. And if you miss the free training, it'll just point you directly to like whatever the course is. But she's doing this free training on it. And I said, oh, hey, well, we should talk about it on the podcast. And so anyways, we got into this wonderful conversation. And I guess that was enlightening for me, was never really, not so directly connecting the idea of just what a spiritual journey writing a book is. And so I just thought it was really a beautiful conversation. I'm going to share with you kind of my 3 biggest ahas, my 3 biggest takeaways, my, what were the highlights for me. And the first one was about vulnerability. So here's I'll tell you, these are the 3 things I'm going to talk about: vulnerability, responsibility, and clarity. These are the 3 things that came out of the conversation: vulnerability, responsibility, and clarity. And the first one is vulnerability, because this is something that I've always struggled with, which is, how vulnerable should I be? Meaning, how much should I expose to the world what is going on in my private life? And just how intimate exactly should we be? And so I'm always fascinated by people who have these really massive platforms, how they reconcile that issue and use it, because everyone talks about vulnerability, and of course it builds a deep, that's what intimacy is, right? Is you're sharing these intimate details about your life with somebody, and that's what makes people feel like you. But at the same time, people, on the internet, there's a lot of strangers on the internet who don't really know you, and so it's kind of a weird thing. And I thought the answer that she gave when I asked her that question, where do you draw the line of how much you share, was really brilliant. Because I kind of thought she was going to say one of 2 things, which is what most people say, is they say, hey, you should share everything. And just like, this is the modern way of the world. Just like, share everything. And that if you want to build fans, you would share everything, which is like, I kind of thought maybe she might say that. Or she might say the other thing, which is, you hear a lot, which is like, hey, your followers, these are not your personal friends. They don't need to know everything going on in your marriage and, what's going on with your kids and whatever. But her answer was so eloquent and brilliant, and she didn't even have to think about it. And she said, share only what you feel safe in. Share what you feel safe in. And I thought that was just such a great thing to go, share as much as you feel safe sharing. That's a really beautiful way to answer that, because it's like, if I feel safe sharing it, then it means, that God, the universe, I call it God, Gabby calls it the universe. Like, but I think you have a sense of going, I feel good about this. I'm talking about something that I've processed enough to where I'm past it. I'm not in the middle of it. And that was another really key point that she said, which I thought was a real practical step, is she said, make sure you're able to tell the story safely without being triggered by it. And I think that's a key delineation point, is to go, okay, if what I'm sharing triggers me, then that means I'm probably still too close to it. Like I'm still living inside of it. And so that's going to be dangerous, because I don't yet really have the full perspective on what happened, which means some of my emotions might be taking more of center stage or front stage versus like, rationale or logic of what really it went on. So I thought that just was really good. Like, and it doesn't give you necessarily a hard and fast answer, which is kind of what I was looking for, but it kind of does. It actually gives a better answer. Share only what you feel safe in. And so I think that's just really, really good. So that's vulnerability. That was my first takeaway. My second takeaway, which I think is going to be, looking back on this is going to actually be my biggest takeaway from this, is about responsibility. And when she said launching a book is a spiritual practice, like that really hit me. I mean, I know that at a distance, because I connect everything, like for everything I do, I connect spiritually. And for me and AJ, like, I mean, our work is our ministry. I mean, that it's a part of what our ministry would be. But like the thinking so specifically that of writing a book and marketing a book is a spiritual practice. And there's two parts. There are several parts of it. She said it's having first of all, you have to have the bravery to reveal the truth. And that's really true, right? Is like, you got to have enough faith and enough comfort, enough confidence, security that like what you're sharing, is like, you have to be brave to let people see into your mind and see into your heart and see into the things that you're thinking. And so anyways, I think that was really, really good. And then you also have to establish the worthiness in your own life, like believing that what you have is worthwhile to say. And I think everybody, right, when they first start out, the idea of being an author, every single author has this question of like, well, why would anyone in the world listen to me? Or like, what gives what gives me the right to share this? And I think that's that's the wrong way of processing it. You can't ask yourself, who am I to share this with the world? You have to ask yourself, who in the world needs this? And if somebody in the world needs this, then that's why you are experiencing that calling. I mean, this is why we say the calling that you feel to share your message with the world is the result of a signal that is being sent out from someone else, and that person needs you more than you need them. And it is your responsibility to share that message, not because of what it will do for you, but because of what it will do for them. That's a spiritual practice. That's powerful. That's allowing your life to be used. It's allowing your voice to be a vessel, right? It's allowing your story to be a conduit to impact and better improve somebody else's. And that is a great responsibility. And so, she said this so directly, which very much aligns with what we say. You have to make it less about you and make it more about the impact that you're going to have on other people. And specifically, again, I loved how it was like, really kind of like spiritual and like up there. But then it was also so practical the way she brought it down. And she said, visualize your reader, like reading your book, and visualize the moment of them having a breakthrough in their life, right? That changes everything. Like, you're not going, am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Are people going to think I'm stupid? Like, is anyone even going to read like this? Like, no one's going to, who am I in the world? All these negative self-doubts. And then yet when you visualize the idea of somebody, can you visualize the idea of one reader, one person looking at the work that you've done and saying, whoa, this is going to help me live a better life for the rest of my life? And if so, like, then you have to do it. Like, that is a spiritual calling. And that is just a real powerful thought. It's your responsibility. It's your privilege. It's your privilege. It's your pleasure, hopefully, but it's also your obligation. It's your duty. It's your responsibility. And that's what we believe, that calling that you feel on your heart is the result of a signal being sent out by another person. And so that's just a different way of thinking about it, and going, gosh, where she was talking about being unapologetic, right? You have to be unapologetic. She said, yes, I have unapologetically put my face on the cover and told the world about the works that I have created. Why? Not out of vanity for myself, not out of a desire to boost, my own self-esteem, but out of a desire to serve and a desire to love and a desire to be useful and helpful to the world around me, which is like that's the highest expression of my life. What a great way to think about it and to overcome and to really put in context what you're doing when you are writing. So that's responsibility. And by the way, so just inside of her course, she talks about this. So this is interesting. So I haven't gone through her course yet. That one of the reasons that we're at least promoting the free training, which again, if you go to brandbuildersgroup.com/Gabby, Gabby impressed me enough from a distance that I know that I have something to learn from her, because I mean, the woman has sold a lot of books. She's impacted a lot of lives, and she's got a huge platform, and she is speaking to a lot of people, right? So on a practical side, I go, I have something to learn from this woman. On a personal side, she's just been totally endearing and just warm, just a complete doll. Like, and so she's got this free training. So, but I've never gone through her course, but I'm planning on going through it. And I thought what was interesting is this whole kind of module she has on the spirituality, and like, and she does meditations, things like that. I would call them prayers, whatever, but she's guiding people through meditations in terms of the mental component of this, of getting yourself to move past some of these limiting beliefs. Cause I think that's really true. We really do struggle. Like, most of our brand builders clients, I'd say most of them have this issue of, they're worried about self-promotion. They're worried about feeling vain. They're worried about not being humble. And so it holds them back from impacting people. And so I think this is a really, really big obstacle that we got to make sense of. And I think, the approach that she's taking here is, very similar in terms of the posture, right? It might be a little bit different in terms of like the exact philosophy, but the posture of making it about other people, and doing it for them and doing it out of service is exactly the same thing that we teach. It's exactly the same thing that we believe. And so I'm really curious about that. And what she's doing there with those, those thoughts. So I would call them prayers. She calls them meditations. You call them limiting beliefs, call it mindset, whatever you call it. It's a reality that whatever you think in your own mind about marketing is either going to empower you to reach people, or it is going to disempower you to reach people. And so this is something we have to explore, and I can't wait to see it. So anyways, brandbuildersgroup.com/Gabby. If it sounds interesting, you can check it out. Of course, we have our bestseller launch plan training too, and it's great. And you might go, well, why do you promote both of them? Because we have an abundance mindset around here, and I want to learn from Gabby. And I go, hey, we want you to learn from us? Yeah, we do. Like, we think we're some of the best in the world at launching books. We sent this big email out a couple of weeks ago. We're working with Ed Milet right now on his book launch. We've helped him sell over 45,000 units. Like, mostly he's done it, but he's following our system, and we're, he's a client and he's following our plan. So like, our system works too. but it's not it's like, I want more, right? And there's not that many people in the world that teach how to launch a book who have actually launched books at the level that Gabby has. So, I want to learn. And so I go, hey, if I want to learn from her, then, some of you probably do too. It's not a matter of either or, it's a matter of both. So anyways, you can check that out, brandbuildersgroup.com/Gabby. And then the third thing, which again is also very aligned with us, is clarity. You have to have this core message, the through line. I mean, the things that we teach in Finding Your Brand DNA about boiling your entire book down to one sentence, boil your whole speech, your entire personal brand down to one sentence. And we talk about it all the time. And then I think people come and they go, man, that's a lot of work. And I don't know, like, I want to talk about all these different things. And it's like, fine, do your own thing. But listen to the interviews. It's not just me or AJ. It's the Gabby Bernsteins. It's the Donald Millers. It's the Michael Hyatts. It's everybody we have on this show who's like making worldwide global impact is saying you got to have that core message, that central message. It's got to be boiled down, and it's the hardest work you'll do, and nobody does it except the biggest brands, biggest personal brands in the world, the biggest influencers, the biggest authors and the speakers, because they do that work, and it's difficult, but you have to know it because it becomes the litmus test of what is allowed in the book and what isn't in the book. And it clarifies who you're marketing to and who you're not marketing to. Not every book you write is going to be a fit for everyone in your audience. Like, there's going to be new people that your new book is a better fit for that aren't yet in your audience. And there's some people in your current audience that aren't a great fit for your current thing. So that's why it's like you're always evolving and you're growing, and you have to have clarity about who you're trying to serve. Too many times we go, well, what's my purpose? And the faster way to get there is not to ask what's my purpose, is to ask who can I help? Who can I serve? How can I be of value? And narrowing down, who is this for? Like, what is the core message and who is it for? And then the practical thing she said, again, this was super, the super practical. She said, this prevents you from writing 5 books in one. And that is so true. That's what happens. Like, the reason why the majority of books don't transmit and sell and get passed on from person to person is because they say a little about a lot. And as my mentor, Eric Chester, taught me the very first day I met with him, when I first set out on this journey, like in my early 20s, to say, I want to be a speaker, he said, Rory, don't say a little about a lot, say a lot about a little. Right. And that's what Gabby's talking about here. Don't try to combine 5 books into one. Take one idea and deep dive on that. That is what makes a great book. And I think that is really genius and useful and edifying to all the things that we talk about. So I hope you enjoy this. The conversation is totally different than I expected, but Gabby was delightful and sweet, and intelligent and brilliant as she is. And to me, it's just like, I'm curious to learn from people like that. And even though, if you don't know or you haven't picked up, like, we have different spiritual views on the world. I think Gabby's just, sort of prides herself on just being very like open, which is great. I happen to be clearly a Christian, but I still can learn so much from her, and we're so aligned. It's like they're not mutually exclusive. And so I've learned a ton from her. I hope you've learned a ton from her. I love following her. She's so uplifting and encouraging. And what an honor to get to interview her, and somebody that has impacted as many people as she had, and for her to share so generously some of these things that she has learned. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you get a conversation. You got to listen in on a conversation between 2 people that you wouldn't hear anybody else, or you wouldn't hear anywhere else, excuse me, like you would right here. So if you know somebody who is an author, aspiring author, or wants to be better at marketing, send them this episode, send the interview of me and Gabby, and hopefully you'll keep coming back on and listening week in and week out to the Influential Personal Brand Podcast. Thanks for being here. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.